Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Awaken to Your Soul Path. I am your host, Barbara, and today I'm joined by the beautiful Alyssa Ciaccio, or Ciacco. Maybe that's how.
Chachi, Chachio, like Joni loves Chachi.
Ciaccio. I know it was sometimes I'm struggling with the Italian. This is a bit off topic, but it doesn't really matter. It's either a Chio or sometimes it becomes a hard, like pistacchio. I need pistachio,
Yeah.
many people think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here we go again with the beautiful Alyssa Ciaccio. And we are going to be talking today about how to heal grief through your spiritual connection. And I'm very happy that we're talking about this because grief is a big topic in my life today with the loss of my dad right before Christmas. But I also know that a lot of people are, have gone through grief at a certain stage in their life or maybe going through it right now. And grief is always a difficult process and it
Mm-hmm.
asks a lot of a human being. So I think most of us are very open to talking about or learning about how to navigate it in a good way. So thank you.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's so important. I don't know if you found this in your grief journey, but I found in my own grief journey, it can be very isolating. It's
Yes.
something that people don't really like talking about. We don't like engaging in. It's not a societal norm. And so a lot of the time when we're going through these things, we can feel very alone when really we should have the most community. And so I mean, I love talking about it because I don't want people feeling alone. I don't want them feeling like they have to go through this process by themselves when really, there are so many people who have experienced the same thing you have and would love to share, that with you.
Yes. Yeah, and I love that you're mentioning this because for me it happened right before Christmas, which I
Hmm.
personally think it's the most shitty time of the year. It's always shitty.
Oh, yeah.
The most shitty time of the year because everything's portrayed as the most wonderful time of the year. And I was going to spend my Christmas and also my New Year's with this person. And then unexpectedly, they die a couple days before Christmas. And what happened was that nobody reached out to me. There was nobody that sent me a text message, nobody that called me, nobody that reached out in any form or shape, not even friends that knew that I was going through this, that this was happening in my life and how important this person was. And then after New Year's, they sent the message, "Hey, I'm back. I hope you had a great Christmas."
Oh my God. Just completely like ignored the fact that you had something terrible happen in your life.
Like they completely forgot that it happened, or and so I felt I don't often feel lonely. For
Hmm.
me, there's a big difference between alone and loneliness.
Hmm.
Alone is just your physical state of being. You're either with somebody in the same room or you're alone in the room, or you're with
Hmm.
somebody in the house or you're alone in the house. You're with someone on holiday or you're alone on holiday, right? That's just state of
Hmm.
being. Loneliness comes from a desire to not be alone, comes
Hmm.
from a desire to connect with someone, to
Hmm.
exchange energy with someone. And I was feeling so alone, so lonely
Hmm.
after New Year's that I actually ventured out onto a dating site, which I regretted 5 days later. But I never feel lonely, but I felt so lonely. The
Right,
whole
because you
Christmas
weren't like
period.
getting that emotional connection that you were looking for. You didn't have that tribe that you needed at a point where things were super difficult for you. I mean, to to be com for that to be completely ignored is unacceptable. You had something happen to you where it feels like your whole life has just imploded or fallen apart, and then for people to just be like, nothing happened, that's awful. That sucks. Those are moments where the people in your life should be checking in on you, seeing if there's anything you need. But I find that people are very uncomfortable with it. They don't know what to
Yes.
do. They don't know how to handle it. Do I say something? Do I don't? And I know like I am in the death industry as a medium, but there are times where I find myself even being a little careful around people because you don't know how they're going to react. When
Mhm.
really just check in on them, just to, hey, I know this happened. Is this something you want to talk about or do you not want to talk about it? Either way, I'm here for you, just having a little bit of
Yes.
emotional intelligence in the moment.
Or even just send me a WhatsApp with a little heart.
Yeah.
That would have already been really great. Even if you're at a loss for words and you don't know what to say, send me a heart or send me
Mm-hmm.
a hug or send me a rose or whatever emotion, emoticon. I don't really care, but something, because then at least I know that you're thinking of me. And that
Mm-hmm.
already can be incredibly supportive because yeah, I didn't know, really want to talk about it. It was very emotional, but I didn't really want to talk about it. But it would have been nice to know that people were thinking of you or that there was an option. And luckily, I've healed enough in myself to then not think, oh, nobody cares about me. I'm only alone here, or you whatever peep word, and how can you call yourself a friend, or any type of responses that are also very normal and very understandable for people in a similar situation. It can trigger anger because you're in grief, and grief does not give you any control over how you're feeling, while anger sort of feels like a control thing, and that you're in control of your anger. So it's very easy to go to anger when you're in grief, or to go from hurt into anger, which is also then compounded by grief. But because I had healed enough in myself, I was able to send a message to one of my really great friends and said, I'm going through, I think, the most horrible time in my life. You are one of the few people that know the complete extent of my pain and my grief. Yet I haven't heard anything from you in the past 2 weeks. How come? So I didn't blame, I wasn't angry or anything.
Mm-hmm.
This allowed her to respond to me and say, I know, I'm sorry. I just suck at grief. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to respond. And I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad that you had that conversation with them. That was very adult of you, even though you are an adult. Sometimes adults don't adult.
No,
Um,
but it can be very difficult if you are still harboring hurt,
yeah,
something that's triggered in this. It's very easy to go into anger or into blame,
yeah.
especially when you're grieving. It's
Right. I like to tell people though, anger isn't something that you should be afraid of, but you shouldn't lead with it. Because it's there to tell you that you may be being treated in a way that you don't want to be treated. And
exactly.
so that's why we don't lead with it. We sit with it and figure out where it's coming from, right? And so you were able, I'm sure, to sit with it and realize, hey, I'm not getting what I need from this other person, and then
Yes.
able to communicate that without leading with anger. Which, by the way, like, good job, proud of you.
Yeah, I realized it came from disappointment. I
Mm-hmm.
was very disappointed because I was very honest with her about what was going on and how I was feeling, and she had me on the phone crying when it just happened. So she also knew how important this person was in my life and everything that they mean to me. So she was one of the few people that knew exactly everything, and it's a feeling of disappointment that you think, even with all of that knowledge, radio silence. Why?
Yeah. And I think that that's sometimes um why people kind of go to mediumship or try to find mediums.
Hmm.
Um which I'm grateful for. Like, this is what we're here for. We're here to sit with you in your grief and in your sadness. But I think that it's also helpful for them, like during this process where maybe nobody else understands how they're feeling, that they can connect with someone who has been through it themselves, has gone through it with hundreds of other people, and then they can also get that connection with their loved one in spirit. Because I found that a lot of the times, and I hope you haven't experienced this, I found that a lot of the times there's so much left unsaid. There's so much that people may regret, or,
Hmm.
feel like they missed out on, or, whatever else it is. And being able to, talk to a medium to connect with their loved one is a very healing thing for them because they get that closure that they need. My favorite thing has been when I know this is gonna sound terrible, but my favorite thing is when my client walks out of the room and they say, "Oh my God, I feel 10 times lighter. Like, thank you so much." And like tears streaming down their face. I'm sorry we went through this emotional process together, but I'm so glad that you were able to like release some
Yeah.
of whatever it was that you're holding on to,
Yes, I completely understand it because in that sense, I'm fortunate. I am a medium myself. So he was in my life, in my orbit quite quickly, and I was able to have these conversations with him myself. We even laughed about it through the grief and the tears, where he said I wasn't open to this woo-woo stuff when I was still alive. I didn't believe in it, and that was the only part of what I was doing in my life that I couldn't really talk to him about. And
Yeah.
he said, Now that I'm up here,"
Now we
about
can.
right, and so we had a laugh about that through the tears, and it's I could feel him putting his hand on my shoulder, and we're having conversations, and he kept telling me, "Oh, don't cry." And I said, "Yeah, well, how can I not cry, because you are just one really awesome person, and the world has become a lot darker since you've left." And he said, "I understand." So we have these conversations, and it's been really helping me process my grief, moving through my grief. But if you don't have these abilities yourself, then going through to someone or through someone, both are applicable here, I think, that can help you to have these conversations can be very healing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Um, I know, I kind of know what you were going through because I lost my father, my stepfather, and my father-in-law in the span of 6 months about 10 years ago.
Mhm.
And the only time I felt any peace, because my grief was very deep, the only time I felt any peace was when they would come to me and talk to me in dreams, and I knew that they were okay. I knew that they were still the person that I loved, and that their consciousness, transcended whatever world that we're living in, right?
Yes.
And to not immediately get that can I honestly I think it's kind of tragic to not have that sense of peace, or to not understand that our loved ones may not be with us in the way that we want, but they are with us in the way that they can be now. And I do I it's my favorite thing. I love telling my clients, if you just talk to them, if you just tell them, hey, I need you to bring some peace into my heart, some comfort into my heart, or if you could help me, just give me some sort of sign so I know that you're still there. And I guarantee you within like a day, you're going to start seeing stuff. Because again, they may not be able to like physically be here, but energetically they are, and they can still be
Yes.
present with us in that way.
Yes, he's now become part of what I call my dream team, which is a combination of my angels and my guides and departed loved ones that are still watching out for you. And so he even said, I am now able to watch out for you and pave the way a lot better than I was ever able to do in my physical form." And I think it also really depends on how you ended or left things with someone. I saw him the weekend before. He died on a Friday morning. I saw him the weekend before. I spent the time I had in the weekend with him hours. I think I was there 8 hours. I cooked for him. He said, "Oh, you can cook so good." And I always enjoy it when you're cooking. So I have really good recent memories. And I spoke to him on Thursday evening. And so there was no thing
Mhm.
left unsaid. There's
Yeah.
no thing that needs closure. And he was
Hmm.
also, I knew he was suffering. He never
Hmm.
said anything to anybody. And there were people who said, "Oh, thank God he didn't suffer at the end." And he said I thought to myself, he was suffering for months.
Hmm.
Just didn't see it. Because
Yeah.
he never talked about it, but he had been suffering for months. So that is also like a double-edged sword, right? Where on the one hand you're completely devastated that someone's no longer there, but also really glad that the suffering's ended.
Yeah, both things could be true at the same time,
Yes.
to watch them not be okay and to finally get that peace. Any physical, emotional, mental things that they were going through are all left behind, and they're in a
Hmm.
better place. I know it's hard for us because they're just not with us the way that we want them to be. And there's a big hole in our life, right? There's like this
Yes.
shadow of places where they should be that they're no longer. And that kind of just sits with us for a very long time. Grief,
Yes.
what do they say? Grief is just love with no place to go.
Yes, but
Hmm.
that's a very accurate description, and I resonate also with what you shared of the loss of your dad and your father-in-law and the other person you mentioned, because I lost five people like that in 2 weeks.
That's awful.
In
Oh my God.
2018. So that was in a time span of 5 weeks. No, 2 weeks. I lost five people. I lost my grandmother. I lost a really good friend. I lost my mom. I lost my brother, and I lost one of my cats, who is like my child. She was with me for 14 years, so this
Oh
is
my God,
quite
you
a
poor
long
thing.
time. And so I call that a person as well. I know some people call me crazy, but for me,
No.
like my child, and I felt so ashamed in that time, because then I was really a burnout coach for highly
Hmm.
sensitive people. I've evolved into a lot more than that now, but I was on the verge of a burnout,
Hmm.
and I felt so ashamed, because how can you call yourself a burnout coach and be on the verge of a burnout? And then
Because we're
right,
still human.
that's what I realized, that if you lose five people who mean a lot to you in the span of 2 weeks, that is so much grief that
Hmm.
it would be a miracle if you hadn't been on the edge of a burnout.
In fact, I would think that there was something wrong with you if you weren't about to be on the edge of burnout.
Yes, because it doesn't fit with being someone you love very much, and it not affecting you that much to the degree of almost being in a burnout. And that's when I realized it's not about not ending up in a burnout. It was about how to get myself away from that edge, and
Yeah.
really, really prioritizing self-care and being there for
Hmm.
myself and doing whatever I needed to not really end up in the burnout.
Right. Well, I think unfortunately part of that is we're expected to just go back to normal life, right? Even though we have all these terrible things happen to us, especially you in such a short amount of time. I'm sure like I know you said you were working for yourself, but like people who are not working for themselves, have a job, like you only get 1 or 2 days off and then you have to just kind of go back to it.
Yes.
I remember when I had all those, oh man, especially when my dad died, like that was really rough. I remember like going back to work a day or day or two later, and my boss called me into the office to talk about something, and I just started boo-hoo crying, just sobbing. And he was like, maybe you should go home. But like, how can you expect somebody whose life has just
Yeah.
completely been dismantled to go back and acting like everything is fine? Like in those moments, we have to remember to give ourselves grace, to care for ourselves, like you said, to just kind of like slowly ease back into things instead of just pretending like nothing happened. And I think that's the biggest problem. That's why we a lot of grief can turn into complicated grief where people get really depressed. And because, grief and depression is not the same thing, right?
No, no.
You're gonna
You
be
can be
really
depressed
sad.
in your grief, but it's still something different.
Right.
Yes.
But I think that can be why a lot of the times, your grief becomes complicated and it turns into depression and all these other things because you're not being allowed to sit with it and to process it and to get through it. You're just supposed to ignore it, which is completely unhealthy if we're gonna be
Yes.
real
And
here.
still, in the country where I grew up, it's better to be an employee than to be a business owner when it comes to this, because as an employee, you can call in sick. And you
Oh.
actually get 2 days for it, but if you're still too upset, you can call in sick and then you will still get paid.
Mm-hmm.
So that is an option here. But as a business owner, when I don't work, no money is coming in.
Mm-hmm.
But money goes out if I don't work. So there's this, how long can I afford to not work, and what can I do, and how can I then take care of myself to the best of my abilities? And well, in that sense, it was sort of lucky that it was Christmas, because
Yeah.
a lot of people were off and were celebrating Christmas, so I didn't have a lot of appointments. And I moved most of my appointments in the first 2 weeks after it happened, to clear my schedule and to take the first 2 weeks of deep mourning. And then after that, I canceled any appointment that didn't immediately bring money.
Good for you.
Yes. Because money needs to come in, and I limited that to only a couple of hours a day. And then the rest of the time, I still took a lot of time to grieve. And I planned the meetings also later in the day, because I noticed, and I would love to hear how that was for you, but I noticed that the grief was the worst in the morning when you just wake up.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
I
have to
think
think
that
about
has
that
to
because it's been a
do,
while.
I think it has to do with the fact that when you sleep, you temporarily forget.
Yeah.
And then when you wake up, the first moment you wake up, you are maybe still ignorant. And then all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden it hits you like a ton of
Mm-hmm.
bricks. Oh God, they died.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I think that plays a role is that we tend to process our emotions in our sleep. So I also often just woke up crying already.
Oh, that's
Uh,
so sad.
yeah, it was. The mornings were really, really bad. And then you don't want to know what you look like in the mirror with these puffy eyes and everything. So I didn't even want to see or talk. And I definitely I canceled all my recordings for my podcast because I couldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you did that. I'm glad that you were able to create space for yourself and give yourself grace and not
Mhm.
push yourself too hard. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember. And I think part of that was because I think I disassociated a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, but I do remember there were being moments like where you said it just kind of like hit me and all of a sudden I was just boohoo crying like if I was driving home or like in the shower or just there were moments all throughout the day where it would just tear me apart.
Yes.
And it never goes away. Like, I mean, our capacity to hold that grief gets bigger, but I don't think that the amount of that grief really ever changes. I still find myself like, especially different times of the year, like Christmas Eve was a really big thing for my family. And so every Christmas Eve, I give my I put on songs that remind me of my grandparents. And I will sit there with a glass of wine because they were Italian, like they were always drinking glasses of wine.
Yes.
And I would just let myself sit there and be sad for a little while because like Christmas Eve was their thing, right? It was like our
Yes.
tradition. It was
It's to
the thing
honor
they
them.
looked, yeah, they looked forward to it all year round. Like they
Yes.
were planning for it the entire year.
I know. I
So,
celebrated Christmas on Sicily.
oh man, you must have been awesome.
Yes, it was. They taught me how to cook and how to make my own pasta. And it was really, really great.
Oh, I love that for you.
Yes.
But yeah, so it's still there. And every year I kind
Mhm.
of, again, allow myself to sit and just kind of like be there with it. And then I'm okay afterwards. It's still there. But, I have found like different practices that do help getting through grief. I mean, besides we talked about acknowledging it,
Yes.
um, creating things that can help us remember the person that's lost. Like some
Hmm.
people like to do collages of like pictures, putting them together, or like a scrapbook, and then having that piece that they can go back and look to. I have a I have an altar in our house of all the people who have passed, and I have their pictures. Sometimes I'll talk to them or like leave little gifts there for them. I know somebody who wrote a book of poetry to somebody that they loved who had passed. And I think creative expression can be very helpful because,
Yes.
creativity, art, all those different outlets can help us express those feelings. Have you done
Yes.
anything like that?
Well, my uncle lived in Canada for a long time, and he lost his heart to Canada. So he's
Mm.
always been, well, he wants to go back, or he wanted to go back for a long time. And because I'm also a painter, I created for him a painting that is the Canadian flag. And
Oh, that's so cool.
right, yep, exactly. And I got him a sign that said, "Oh, I'm so incredibly lucky to have a bonus dad like you." And after he
Oh.
died, I requested those items back, or I took those items back, and
Hmm.
I made a sort of a mini altar behind me where I put the painting I made with the mark that I made to sort of honor him.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
was that very cathartic for you?
I'm very happy that I have these things and that I can look at them. I think I am not a conventional person in the sense of that as soon as somebody is buried, I never go back to the grave.
Yeah,
I
me
want
either.
to go there. I have nothing to find, nothing to gain. They wanted me to come and look at him in the casket for the last time. I never do that either because I much prefer to remember him the last weekend right before I was there, the last phone conversation we had the night before, and the good things, right? I find
Right.
no solace in going to a grave or something, while other people love going there and love talking to them and there and feel closer to them there because their body is there. I don't
Hmm.
have that, and I think because of my medium gifts. I am able to have conversations with him right here, and I can feel him wherever I am, and I don't need to go to a specific place. So
Mhm.
it brings me peace, I think, to look
Mhm.
at that painting and to look at that plaque, that memorial thing that I made
Mhm.
for him, and to remember the good times.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's what I like to
My
do.
after my stepfather died, there wasn't much that I got from him, but his daughters gave me one of his necklaces and a beer stein because he oh my God, what did he it was he served in the military, the army, and he did a little stint in Germany. And so like he was crazy about the beer there and he brought home a bunch of like beer steins. So I had this beer stein and I loved it. I thought it was so beautiful. I had it out like for everyone to see. And one of my cats knocked it over and it just shattered. Um, and it absolutely broke my heart. But I kind of I remember standing there and like seeing this mess and saying to myself, this isn't him. Like this object is not him.
No.
Um, this isn't all the memories that I had with him. And as much as I loved it, like it has no I hate to say like it has no meaning because it did have meaning for me for a while, but it it wasn't as important as everything else that I had with him, if that makes sense.
Yes, because you
Yeah.
always have your memories, no matter how much this thing shattered. But I can also understand how, when you get emotional attached to an object, it can feel sort of like losing him all over again when it shatters.
Right. Yeah. Oh my God, that perfectly said. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's very personal, right? Grief, and how you move through it, and what you like and what you don't like, and what is
Hmm.
important and what is not important. I noticed that other people have a very different response to the same person not being there any more than I have.
Yeah.
And I do know that it's now easier than when it just happened. When it just happened, I just couldn't stop crying. It was really,
Hmm.
really impactful. And but yesterday, I took myself to the movies, and I thought I was going to see a comedy. And I thought, oh
Hmm.
yes, yeah, laughing a lot. And that was also the screener or the trailer I saw. It was really, really funny. And then the story was about them or her losing her husband, but the children losing their dad. And it was
Oh
about grief.
no.
So I ended up crying for almost the entire movie instead of laughing.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. And I thought this was not according to plan.
Oh, you poor thing. Oh, that's so traumatizing.
Yes. Well, on the one hand, I thought, oh my God, why is this happening? And on the other hand, I thought, well, maybe I needed to cry some more.
Oh,
Maybe I
that's
needed to
true. Good way to
release some
look at
more,
it.
right? And so one
I
of the
find,
things that really
go
helped
ahead.
me was to see tears as the pearls of the soul.
Mm. Oh, I like that. Right, that it's okay to cry. It's okay to be sad. Yeah.
Yes, because emotions are basically energy in motion, emotion,
Mm-hmm.
energy in motion, and I had to work on this because what happened before when I lost people, I would stop breathing. I would literally stop breathing. It was
Oh
such
my
a shock
God.
to the system that the impact of it was like, and that right that type of response. And I had to train myself to keep on breathing, to keep breathing through
Wow.
the grief. And I went into nature because the grief was so huge that
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what to do with myself. And I started walking. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I walked for
Your
four
body just intuitively knew what to do.
5 hours in the woods, and I let the grief out. And what there were really beautiful things that happened, actually, that I want to share, because while I was walking in the woods, the grief comes in waves. So there were
Mm-hmm.
times where you didn't cry that much, and then all of a sudden this surge of grief, of sadness, of emotion. And I thought I was alone. And this wave of grief hit me, and I thought I can just let it out because I thought I
Mm-hmm.
was alone. And
Mhm.
while I was letting it out, somebody stepped up to me and she said, "Oh my God, are you okay? Do you
Oh,
need
that was
help?
so
Can I
sweet.
help you?" And it was really sweet. And the only thing I could say was, "My dad died today."
Oh,
And she was like,
oh my God.
"An hour ago." And I said, she said, "Okay, then I know you need a hug." And she just
Oh.
grabbed me and she hugged me and she held on for quite some time. I think she hugged me for at least 15 minutes and just let me cry.
Oh
And
my
then
God,
she
I
said,
love that woman.
"Can I do something for you?" And I said, "Well, you just did."
Oh.
I needed a hug and you gave me a hug. And then she said, "Well, I'm going to give you my phone number. If you want someone to talk to, or if you need more hugs, then you can call me. And if you never want to speak to me again, then that's also perfectly fine. I will not feel offended. But at least you have someone to call." And I was
Yeah.
so touched by, well, the kindness of a stranger.
Mhm. She knew where you were coming from. Like, that's what it was. She definitely had experienced the same thing that you did and knew exactly what you needed. That's so beautiful, though. I
Right?
mean, it's it's so sad that, like, the people you were closest to couldn't do that for you, but, like, this woman who you just met out of nowhere was able to.
Yes.
It's crazy because I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like a lot of the times we're told that we're not allowed to show emotion, that it's not okay, like, that you're crazy if you show too much emotion, and I know myself, like, I have worked very hard to feel comfortable to be in my own feelings.
Mhm.
Um, and as you're going through grief, like, allowing yourself to have those feelings and allowing yourself to show those feelings to other people can be, uh, um, I mean, freeing, honestly, to have
Yes.
someone be a, oh my God, what is the word? Now my brain just doesn't want to work. Witness.
I know
Thank
that
you.
sometimes.
Witness
Yes. Witness to your grief. Yeah.
can be very helpful. And also, again, just going back to, like, knowing that you're not alone, that there's other people here for you during this time and having community. Did you ever reach out to that woman again?
Well, I reached out to her after the new year and I sent her a message because before I couldn't talk about it, especially not
Mm,
with someone I didn't know. But after the new year, eventually I sent her a message saying that I really wanted to thank her for giving me a hug in a time where I really needed a hug, and
mhm.
how much it had meant to me at that time. And yeah, just a heartfelt thank you. And she said, "Oh, that's such a kind message. Thank you."
Mhm. Your dad definitely sent you that way to run into her. He knew what you needed at that
It
time.
must be because it's a piece of woods where I often walk and where I never really encounter anybody. And
Mhm.
not only when she was hugging me, eventually she tapped me on the shoulder and she pointed to the that way. And so I
Mhm.
looked, and there was this older man with a bicycle, and he kept saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry, lady. I'm so sorry for you. I'm so sorry, lady. I'm so sorry for you." And apparently he heard the things that came out in between the sobs and the grief. And so that was a second unexpected kindness from a
That's
total
crazy.
stranger. And I felt so touched, so blessed in that
Mhm.
moment, especially indeed because the people that I had hoped would be there were not there.
Mhm.
It inspired me to write a blog about the unexpected kindness of strangers when you're going through grief.
Yes. I found, and I don't know if you feel this way too, but our loved ones in spirit, you know how they say, like, "Oh, my loved one's a butterfly or they're or a bird," and stuff like that? I don't believe that they are actually that animal. I don't think that they've possessed the animal to be
Oh,
there. But I tell people I think it's kind of like this. Like, they're standing by a little, like, stream, right? And
mhm,
they can move the water. So if there's, like, a little leaf that they want you to see, they can move the water, the energy around that leaf until it finally gets to you. And I feel
mhm.
like that could have been just like what your dad did. He moved those people or gave them little nudges to go in certain ways, just like you got those little nudges to go in the direction you were going and give you what
Yes.
you needed at that time.
Yes.
There's so many little ways that they show themselves. Sometimes we don't even notice, but if we open our eyes or,
Mhm.
like, our understanding of it a little bit more, we'll see that they're always there for us. Again, like not in the
Yes.
way we want them to be, but in the way that they can be.
The person I started this podcast with, Awaken to Your Soul Path, is called Robin. And Robin was a really, really good friend of mine, and she unexpectedly died in 2023. Within 2 weeks, she was gone. It was very shocking, also in a very, very short time span. And because her name is Robin, I regularly see red robins.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I always think, oh, hey, Robin, I'm so great. It's so great to see you again, right? Because it's constantly a red robin, and then they either come and I had one come and sit on my chair with me.
That's so
And
cool.
then I think, hey, Robin, it's so great to see you again. So for me, every time I see a Robin, it feels like I connect with her again.
Oh, that's so sweet. I'm so glad that she sends them to you.
Yes,
With my Nana, it's roses. Anytime I see like a rose, I actually it's funny because I specifically we went to this like craft festival with my kids and they're doing like this collage thing
Mhm.
and there was this big bag of just like cut out stuff and I was like, Nana, if you're here, I'm gonna stick my hand in this bag. I'm gonna pull out a rose to let me know that you're here. And so I stuck my hand in, pulled something out, and it was a rose. And I was like, thanks, Nana.
Yes,
But
exactly.
I feel like I've built a trust and relationship with her in the afterlife that
Mhm.
like I guess we have that like energetic connection. But just little things like that, like asking them to show us or do things for us or just something so that we know we're still there and
Yes,
keeping our heart open to whatever it could be. Because it may not be
yes,
an actual flower, it could be like a truck going by with the word rose on it, you know?
yes. And even when you are not a psychic or a medium, you
Hmm.
can still talk to them.
Yeah.
You can still have conversations with them in your mind or out loud when you're by yourself in company. In company, people would probably look at you. But even when you don't have the gift of communicating, you have the gift of communicating. You can always
Right.
talk to a loved one, and if you can be silent enough or still enough within yourself, there will be a resounding or a resonating energy, like maybe the wind suddenly blowing, or a song that means something to both of you, sung
Hmm.
on the radio, or a smell that reminds you is suddenly in your nose, or things like that, that we might think, oh, that's a coincidence,
No, it's not a coincidence. It's
right?
them.
Yes,
My
yes,
dad always, my dad used to smoke Swisher Sweets. You know what those are?
yes,
Yeah. And I don't, I've never seen them anywhere else, but there are days where like I'll be out at a park and I smell Swisher Sweets and I'm like, oh, hey dad, how's it going? But yeah, like they can hear us. A medium is just like a translator.
yes,
You may not understand their language. We understand it a little bit better than you do, but we're just the translator. We hear with that phone to help you understand what they're saying or to hear a little bit more clearly the messages that they're giving to you. But yeah, they're
yes.
always there. They never go away.
No. No,
Yeah.
and I find that also to be a very comforting thought, but not always, if I'm being
Yeah.
honest. So there was a lot of abuse in my childhood, and my dad
Hmm.
died when I was 20. And a
Hmm.
medium, before I tapped into my own gifts, a medium told me that he was always with me. That was not comforting.
Well, did she get all the other stuff and understand where you were coming from?
Yes, she understood,
Hmm.
and she told me that he wanted me to know how sorry he was, and that in
Hmm.
his physical life he was well, fill in the curse word, and that now that he is in his spiritual form, that he can see the
Hmm.
limitations and the thing that he was doing in his physical form, and that as a
Hmm.
spirit he was sorry for what his physical form made me go through.
Hmm.
It took a while for me to be open enough to, because I needed to release a lot of anger before
Yeah.
I could let that message come in. And now it's sort of comforting that he's there and
Hmm.
he's also watching out for me. But when she first told me, I thought, well, he was never there for me when I needed him, so he can fuck off right now
Right.
either.
I totally understand that because I had that kind of, well, it wasn't abuse, but it was we were no contact when my dad died. And so I didn't hear from him. Like I was going through my mediumship mentorship and I like he never came through. And then one day he finally did and he was like, I'm sorry, da da da. I'm like, I don't want to hear this. Like I just had to deal with all this stuff by myself. Like I'm good. I got, you know. So I found that we have to be very careful about the way we say things to people.
Yes.
Um, I tell Spirit all the time, like, I'm not going to be a censor. You can tell me anything and I'm going to tell it to this person. But I also add a caveat. Um, like, I know you may not want to hear this right now, but it might be helpful for later. Um,
Mhm.
I want you to understand that this is where they're coming from. You don't have to listen to them, just so that they have an understanding, like whatever I tell you, it's take it as you will, but don't be hurt by it,
Yes, and that's
because you
good.
never know where the person's at.
No, I don't think she knew before she told me that he was around me and that he was taking care of me, that that was going to be my response. I think she was quite shocked that I wasn't really happy with it, because we didn't really talk about it before, or what it meant to me. But so that's why I say that. And if this is you out there, right? If you are hearing a message like that, then it's okay. Whatever comes out is okay. If you do grieve
Hmm.
someone, that's okay. If someone that everybody expects you to grieve about and you're not grieving, that's also okay.
Yeah.
That was what was happening with me when my dad died. Everybody expected me to be really upset and to be really grieving. And that dad, I wasn't upset about at all. This was my bonus dad. That was in all
Right.
purposes much more a dad than my biological donor sperm person. And
I'm so glad that
this,
you had your bonus dad in your life.
me too. It was so
Yeah.
wonderful. That's just the word for it. Really, really, really wonderful. And but people expect you to behave in a certain way. But I learned that if people have behaved in such a way that it's impossible, or they made it impossible for you to really grieve them, then you don't have to feel guilty about that either. In
Right.
grief, any type of grief, any type of emotion that's there is just the emotion that's there. And it's okay to feel whatever it is that you're feeling without any need to explain it, or to feel guilty about it, or to have to be
Set
accountable.
some sort of expectations.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, you don't have to live up to other people's expectations. It's about your process and how you're feeling in that moment, and whatever that is your thing.
Hmm. I will get on my soapbox for a second though, because you um we were talking about, people not really knowing where they're at or what they're experiencing or feeling. Um, I I feel very strongly about boundaries and being an ethical medium. And it drives me crazy when I hear of other mediums just going up to people and being like, your dad's here. When this person like never even asked for that, because like you said, you don't know where they're at or where they're coming from, or if this is gonna like give them a terrible day.
Mhm.
It's
Yes.
not fair. It's not right to do.
No. Yes, I love that you're an ethical medium. I believe very high in ethos, and it's a very important thing to me as well, because I love asking for permission. Also,
Yeah.
I have a message from this person for you. Are you in a position that you can and want to receive this? For
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's a very important thing. But those are things that I also learned when I was very new to this. I didn't know anything about this, and this I was at a fair, so I requested a reading. It was not out
Mm-hmm.
of the blue that she came up to me. I requested a reading, but
Right.
I had never had a reading before, so I didn't really know what to expect. And this was definitely
Right.
not in the range of things I was expecting.
Mm-hmm. Well, and a lot of people when they're first encountering a medium or having a reading for the first time, they're nervous, right? They don't know what to expect. There's a lot of unknown. I always try to talk to the person beforehand to make them feel safe and comfortable and be like, what are you thinking? How are you feeling about this? What are some fears that maybe you're having? And then trying to kind of comfort or, understand some of those fears so that as we're moving forward, I understand where they're coming from and how I can maybe be a little gentler around certain things.
Exactly.
Um, I mean, because I really, like I said, I truly believe in not censoring spirit. Like my job is to be their channel, to be their communicator.
Yeah.
But I do want to try and like meet meet my sitter where they're at as well and help them heal. I mean, that is the biggest part of mediumship, that we are there to help other people heal as well.
Hmm.
And I'm not gonna lie, I do get a little frustrated when some people who are like, I'm a medium, and then they just kind of like word vomit things without understanding like the implications that their words can have to people,
Hmm.
you know?
Yes. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And then we're not going to, but we haven't even spoken about people who call themselves a medium and are not a medium, and they're just really good at asking you questions without you noticing. And then
Have,
parroting back the information to you and then pretending that they got it from the divine.
have you seen that documentary, Look Into Your Eyes?
No.
Oh my, you have to watch it. It's a documentary. I think it's on HBO, and it follows a bunch of psychics or and like quote unquote mediums. And that's what they do the entire time. They just ask the people questions and then like get a yes or no, and then they just feed off of that. And it drives me bananas because like that's not what we're doing. I'm giving you the information, you're confirming it, but I'm not asking you. I'm telling you that this is what they're telling me, and you're telling me if that's correct. And
Yes.
usually it's a yes.
Yes, exactly. I had a reading like that, and then he wanted to charge me a premium price, and I said, I'm not paying this because you didn't actually tell me something that I hadn't told you before you told it to me.
Mhm.
So no, 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 you're a charlatan. Yeah.
Right. And I'll tell my sitters too, like there are going to be times where I may ask you, how would you understand this? That's not going to be all the time, but there are going to be times where I say, how would you understand? Like, how would you understand apples being very important to this person? And you'll be able to fill in the gaps because I don't get the full story. I get bits and pieces, but I can give you those bits and pieces, and I'm not going to ask you like,
So
um, right? You know what I mean?
you knew to ask about apples, and it was not something I talked about in relation to this person. So it is something that comes from you, and then usually it resonates, and then you can talk about it. I also had real sessions with real mediums, and they were able to tell me things that I thought, oh, this is almost eerily
Mm-hmm.
spot on, right? That,
Mm-hmm.
oh God, and you don't know me. We have never spoken before, and we didn't have a real pre-talk about anything. And then you tell me things that you have no other way of knowing than really from a connection to that person. And then I
Right.
always know, okay, this is the real deal. And that's a bit how you can feel into if you're being conned or not.
Right, exactly. And I love what I do. I feel so blessed that I get to do this every day. And I really do believe this is sacred work, and I it
Mhm.
drives me nuts when people don't see don't aren't careful with the sacredness of it, aren't respectful of the
Yes.
sacredness of it, you know.
Yes. Yeah, I totally get that. I also have that. That's I think the main reason why I don't call myself a coach anymore. Besides that,
Mhm.
I'm much more than just a coach. I'm also an energy healer, and the list goes on. I will not bore you with it. But there are so many coaches who have just, well, fucked it up for everybody else.
Mhm.
And they have no ethics and no ethos, and they have really, well, screwed the pooch for most people who come from a genuine place, and I hate that too, so I get it. Yeah.
Right, because we're here to help other people.
Yes.
And how can we help them if we, haven't done the work ourselves or if we're not taking it seriously?
Yes, or we are
Yeah.
just in it to make money off of you, and if it actually helps, I don't give a peep.
I mean, I kind of got to make some money off of this. This is my full-time job, but I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, well, no, but that's different, right? Of course, you need to make money because money makes the
Right.
world go round. But your driving motivation is not how much money can I make from you.
Right.
Your driving motivation is how much can I help you?
Right. How
Thank
can
you
I
for
be in
paying me for
service?
that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a whole different way of looking at things. Yes. Oh, I've been really loving our conversation so far, Alyssa, and mindful of the time. I know we have to wrap things up. So, there are two things I would like to ask you. Is there some last thing or advice that you want to give someone that is going through a lot of grief? And the second thing I want to ask you is if people want to work with you, if they want a mediumship consult with you, where can they go?
Yes, definitely. So, if you're going through it right now, if you're having a lot of grief, I would definitely just advise to not hold it all in. Don't hide yourself. Don't bottle it all up. try to find somebody that you know you can trust and be present with and share that grief with them. Even if it's a little uncomfortable for them, like let them know what you need in order to get through this because it's not going to be easy and we need community during these times. And if you feel like connecting with a loved one in spirit will help you through this process, you can always book with me at thefloridamedium.com.
Perfect. I will make sure that this link is also included in the show notes, probably somewhere below this video. And I would also love it for you, listener, viewer out there. First of all, thank you for joining us in this wonderful conversation, for being here. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel, maybe hit the notification bell so you will never miss any other interesting conversations. But I would also love it if you could, let yourself be heard in the comments. Either share the key insight that you got out of our conversation today, or maybe share a part of your grief story, because it really helps to know that you're not the only one going through this, and to connect with other people going through grief. And reading the comments can also be really supportive or sometimes eye-opening for people going through something similar. So I would love it if you could leave me a comment in the comments below. And of course, you can also reach out to me. I also offer free clarity calls to people if you want to explore working with me. Reach out to Alyssa if you want to get a mediumship reading done, connecting with a loved one, or maybe have these final conversations that you were not able to have, get closure, whatever, or maybe just laugh with someone and feel their energy for another time. Anything is possible. Um, yeah, for today, I think we've reached at the end of a really beautiful conversation. I want to
Thanks
thank
for
you,
having
Alyssa,
me.
for being here. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was such a pleasure talking to you, Barbara. I always enjoy our conversations.
Me too. And of course, for you, listener, viewer out there, thank you so much for your ongoing support for this channel. And I wish you an amazing rest of your day today. And I look forward to inspiring you with another beautiful guest in next week's episode. Bye for now.
Bye.